So it's your first time, I got your back, don't worry. In this episode, I'm going to help you sort out being a live guest on a podcast or a live stream. If you've not done it before, it's your first time. So after watching this video, you will understand that if you're going onto a guest appearance on a show, live stream, podcast, anything, you're there for yourself. However, it's the host's job, in this case me, to make you shine. I'm not here to catch you out. I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be easy, relaxed, so we can have a nice conversation. There is a lot of planning that goes behind the scenes, which you may not see. This video is designed to be sent to my podcast guests, so you will actually get this. So if you're coming on my podcast, you'll have a link to this, and this video will help put you at ease. I will show you a case study, a real life example of the full process, and that will help you. So hello, I'm Zulf, and my channel is about talking. I do a podcast called ZulfTalks over multiple other social media sites, and my other YouTube channels. I've got in excess of over 4,000 videos, a number of live streams across multiple social media platforms. It's important to let you know about my channel first, and then we can understand, am I qualified enough to talk to you about this? So it's time to get into the main topic. If you're going on as a guest, is it a video? Is it a live stream? Is it a podcast? Do you need to worry about any of these? You will consider your camera setup, your microphone setup, all those standard things. But you know what? If you've been sent a link to be on my podcast or my video live stream, or even a video podcast, a Vodcast they call it, don't they? You don't have to worry, because you've got to this point and you're watching this video. I've sent you a link to this video, which means I've looked at your profile. I'm happy that you will be a good fit for my audience. So already it's my job to make sure you're happy in the process of the podcast, Vodcast, whatever you want to call it. I've put out some casting calls for people to come on to my podcast, and I've had a few new members procrastinating. They're just worried. Oh, shall we come on? Is everything in place? They look at all minute details, may go onto YouTube and look for being a new guest on a show, what to think about, and YouTube bombards you. I've seen loads of videos there. Don't go on a podcast until you watch this. Are you doing this? Are you making these mistakes? You don't need any of that. So case study, let's look at this as an example. What happens? So when I put out a casting call, I'm already letting you know who I am. I'm letting you know I've got an episode of a podcast. I've got 133 episodes. By genre is education, motivation, success stories, and how long each episode is planned to last for, and also a link to my social medias for you to firstly check out, is this the right person for me? Because it's very important, if you're currently thinking about being a guest on my show and you've seen that, firstly, that you've read that. Because if you've read that, there's actually a couple of things in there which I need you to do. So you need to make a comment onto that post saying, oh yeah, this is me, here's a link to my podcast. Some people will be like, oh yeah, I want to be on the show. That means they've not read your description. So normally that's not a good fit for me, because if they're not reading that information, then they're going to miss essential things in the show. So that's a case study of one example. The same sort of rule applies to Reddit. I've put a call out, had a number of guests show interest. During your decision making process, you should be looking at A, can you bring value to the podcast, the genres they're speaking about? Look at their social media links. Look, in my case, look at my social media links. Check my podcast. Check a previous episode I've done. Is this a good fit? In your example, you would be thinking about, I'm going to go on the show. Let's look at how previous guests have been going on. So then going onto the social media would be, in my case, as simple as clicking on the link. It'll take you to my website, ZulfTalks.com. Welcome to my landing page. Below you'll find direct links to social medias. I share my journey from being a 9-to-5 worker and becoming a company owner. And that's what my episodes are about. So I talk about everything from what's your journey like, health and fitness, thinking about your own well-being, working, staff, all those things that another person wanting to start a company will need. So that covers a wide scope. It's more of a diary. You've got links here, so you can check out my videos, you can check out my previous podcasts. The list is quite big, so make sure to check them out. Do your research. Is this the right fit for you? If it is, then you would message me. So for example, you've seen that post as my guest. Oh yeah, I'm scrolling through my social media, let me go and have a look at that. Yeah, I want to be a guest. Reply, and then I'll reply to you with saying, you know what, I've looked at yours. So you've looked at mine, I've looked at yours, I think you would be a good fit. Or I'll say, can you give me a link to a video or another episode you've been on, so I can make sure that you'll be a good fit for the show. In that case, we'll be communicating via messages, and in the messages, I will then send you a link. What's that link for? It's for Calendly. Now, the reason I do this is because Calendly sorts out all the PA stuff, basically. So the personal assistant requirements you need. So what you will get is you'll get a link to this. You will click on podcast guest if you're coming onto my podcast. Here you'll see, please choose a slot that works best for you. Once booked, you will get an email from me, Zulf Trusted Creators, with the meeting details. And even here you can see I've already put a secondary place. If you're unsure, this is what my previous episodes look like. So you can have a look at a YouTube video of a previous Vodcast. You can have a look at an audio only podcast. And then here you can see my socials, which I mentioned before. Now, coming up to this point, you don't need to worry. You may think, oh, I've booked a slot, I'm into his calendar, I'll have to attend. That's not what this is. You can look here, click a date. You'll see that was the 21st, for example. I've got 2 slots available there. So say, for example, I'm thinking of 8. I can click on 8. I confirm. But this confirm does not book it into my calendar. This confirm takes you to another page, which gives you more information. So it's saying web conferencing details with Zulf podcast guest. That's the time it will be booked. You enter your name as my guest. You put your email address. Further down, I have given you some questions. These are questions that make sure you have the right fit for my show. So nothing's been booked yet. There's extra information. Please summarize who you are and what you do. A few bullet points will be sufficient. This will help introduce you in the show. Now, I've already looked at your channels, but I want to make sure on this point, those bullet points are things you're currently working on. So if you've got a book release, you're planning to plug something, you want to make sure that people know about your new book you're selling or a new course you're offering, that's where you'll put that. So when I look at it before our episode, I know, okay, I'm going to plug my guest today. I need to mention these things first, then we have a conversation. In addition to that, please list a few topics you are most comfortable speaking about. With my podcast, they are very conversation led. I do go back on the episodes and edit out bits. So that is something you'll cover. You'll see that a bit later in this little form that I'm using. And what this means is if you're coming on as a guest, you need to make sure that there's a few areas of interest you can populate there. The reason for that is I'll glance at those. I'll discover, oh yeah, you like motorcycling, you like Harry Potter, you like watching series of episodes. That gives me an idea of your mindset and what we can speak about, how we speak about them, for me to make you feel comfortable. Because remember, when you're a guest on the show, my job is to make you feel easy, comfortable. I'm not here to catch you out. I want you to shine. In addition to that, going further down, please supply a link to your website, social media or podcast. The reason I do this is I have multiple guests come on my show, and at a glance on my calendar, that is all concise information. So I can look at that and make sure, okay, I've got a website. I can say, okay, my guest is on Spotify. You can actually find him on Amazon as well to make sure to check out his book that he's selling, and it'll be released in the next 2 weeks. So example, I'll give you a proper example in a bit, so stay tuned. Will you be promoting a third-party service, brand or company other than your own company or social media? This question is important to me because my podcast, I am very focused on my audience. I don't like to sell to my audience. I talk about things I've used and I've got experiences with, but I don't like selling third-party software, or I don't let a brand come on and just like do a promotion. That's a no-no. So the reason I have that there, if you put yes, I'll ask you, okay, what is it that you're doing? So if you're not promoting any of the softwares, that's fine. If you've got your own things as a guest, and remember, I have my episodes open up to guests. I don't like to go through an agency where they try and plug and sell 3 different people to me. So that's not what my channel is about. Further down, you've got a last bit here. Attendance to this meeting does not guarantee a feature on the podcast. Zulf from Trusted Creators will own the rights to video audio he records from the meeting and may edit the content to make it suitable to share across social media. Yes, that's fine. No, cannot proceed. This is an important one. When we make a podcast, we're talking to each other. We're having a conversation. It will flow. There will be bits that maybe we've got a few edits that we need to do. I will take out shorts from that to put onto other social medias, which I'll show you now. So with my show, segments are pulled out of the show and those are featured on my social media. So I'll put out little excerpts, motivational sections that we spoke about, and those feature on my social media. That's why that box is important. I need to make sure that you're okay with me sharing the podcast on video, audio, and on my channels, and also making sure that we're both happy to proceed with that. If we can't, then we can't feature you on the show. You can have notes in there. For example, if you're not comfortable being on camera, you can put a section on there saying, in the other section, you can say, yeah, can I come on, but I don't want to show my video. I just have audio, if that's okay. Just want to be on the podcast, not the Vodcast. That's an option. That's a quick look at the case study section of the video. So what happens next? Let's carry on. So you'll do at the bottom here, you will click schedule event. You will then get an email from me in your calendar. So you'll have an email drop into your inbox and a calendar invite added. It will give you a brief overview of what you've already told me. It'll give you the time, the date, and looking down here you can see answers to the questions I've asked you. So when my pop-up comes up on the notifications, I can see all of that at a glance. What that means is when we're talking, when we have a meeting, the 60-minute meeting, everything flows. So that will be the calendar process done. It's booked in your calendar. What happens next? You'll get a reminder notification before the day of the show, and then on the day we'll get connected. There'll be a link to a Google Meet in that, which you click, it comes through, we talk, we say hello. 60-minute session, this is how it breaks down. The first 5 minutes we will just speak. I'll say, okay, so I've looked at the answers you've given me. This is the journey I'm taking the show. I'm going to talk about these points. I'm going to make sure that some of those points are things you've already said you're good at, because I need to make sure we're going to have a natural conversation. Those points will be a direction. Don't be too script orientated, because I've seen YouTube videos about giving information and bullet everything. It depends how you work. But when I'm the host and I'm leading the show, you don't need to worry. I'll ask a question, you'll have an answer, we'll look at diverging things. We won't be at a point where we won't have anything to say. We'll always have something to say, because that's my job to do. And going through that, once the show's been done, you'll be filmed, it'll be ready for me to do my next steps. You'll get an email saying, okay, thank you, which is we end the show. You'll get an email next day saying, thanks for being on the show. I'm currently going through the workflow. I'll be sending you a link to the podcast and the video, which is going to be scheduled. The video will be available on my YouTube channel. It will be available on my podcast, all the social media sites that you know in the starting. And then I'll give you a reminder saying, okay, I've put everything out there. These are the links. And then during that process, I'll say, you know what, would you like to be back on the show again? Let's do another one. So let's review this process. What we've done there is I've given you an idea of how this works, what you need to do as a guest when you look at the person's show you want to go on, make sure you're doing the research, making sure that you can communicate with them is a good seamless way of sending out a calendar invite, me having those questions there, you filling out the questions, completing that scheduled process. You get a notification when the meeting is, we have the meeting, I record the meeting, and then we end the show. And then you get a follow-up email saying, okay, we've done everything, I'm scheduling your episodes. You'll get a link to the information, and that would be the process. So I know I covered that quite quickly, but I wanted to give you an idea of the process. I'm ZulfTalks.com. My podcast is available there. You can find more interesting information on my channel, but this video was mainly aimed towards you as my guest coming onto my show. I want to put you at ease. Let's set up that meeting and have a chat. General layout of my podcasts and my shows are 3 sections of 3. You may not have noticed, but this video was actually recorded in that same format. Here you'll notice my title. Then we've got a chunk here. We've got a chunk here. And we've got a chunk here. Intro the video. Who's my target audience? Intro my channel. What's in it for you to watch this video? The main topic, middle section, which will be section 2. Main topic, the case study, where we're looking at an example of what's flowing and what happens next. And then the last bit, review the process. Did it go okay? Summarize it. Give you a call to action, which is my ZulfTalks.com. And then where you can find more. So you'll see this video use that exact same concept, broken into the 3 areas I talked about. And then I've got 3 sections in the middle, which is the meat of the video. You'll notice the marker here is that's section 1, that's section 2, that's section 3. And then right at the end, I've got another block of 3, which is an outro, giving you a call to action and giving you a tease to the next video. So you've seen the example of that, and this same rule I use for my videos, my podcasts, my vodcasts, my live streams. So there is a bit of method to the madness. Don't assume that we're just having a conversation. It has been planned. You will get a nice feel and flow of it without knowing the structure there. So using what I've just showed you, let me show you this example, a live example of how this would work. So my guest has looked at me, they found me, we've done the communication, booked the calendar, today's the slot, this is how it would flow. So they've sent email to me. This is me giving you a real example now. Thanks for joining me on Zulf Talks. We've got a podcast lined up today for you to help you with your life. There's some success stories today, and I've got a rugby's leading mindset and performance coach for young players. He's a founder of Offside Rugby, and he's releasing a book very soon, end of this month actually, titled The Book on How You Become a Pro Rugby Player. Brian Moyler. At this point, it'll be a joint screen. You'll see both of us, and then we'll go into the conversation and the topic, and you'll have a bit of artwork showing that for the viewers, and the listeners would get straight into the topics, which I have questions lined up for. So that gives you an idea. Hopefully this gives you something to think about. Relax. I'm here to help you. We'll get through it. Bam. ZulfTalks, let's talk.